Okay, we're going to talk about what cubed and squared means. Cubed means an exponent of 3. Exponents or powers, some people call them. Squared means an exponent of 2. Exponents tell us how many times to write the big number, which we call the base, and then multiply the list. I lost my letter here. Then multiply the list. So what I mean is 5 is the base. So the 2 is telling us how many times to write the 5. Write it twice. It is never 5 times 2. It's not 4 times 3. This is just telling you how many times to write the big number. So we would read this as 5 squared, or 5 to the second power, or 5 with an exponent of 2. And it means 5 times 5. This means 4 cubed, or 4 times 4 times 4. Over here, this is 8 squared, or 8 with an exponent of 2, or 8 to the power of 2. 8 squared means write the 8 2 times and then multiply. So when we did 5 squared, the answer is 25. 4 cubed, 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 is 64. And then 8 times 8 is 64. 11 times 11, 121. So when you're using exponents, your answer gets what we call exponentially large. It explodes. It becomes powerful. It gets really big, really fast. Much bigger than if you would just multiply these two numbers together. That's not how we ever do this. This little number means multiply this number by itself. Okay, so to go the other way, to undo it, we say find the square root. This little, we call it a radical symbol. It's like a division symbol, but it's got a little hook on it. It means, if it's written just plain like this, it means this. It means there's an invisible exponent of 2 here. And if there's a number inside of here, it's asking what number, like here, on 25, what number has an exponent of 2? That's what the radical symbol's asking. It's saying what number had an exponent of 2 that made the number inside of here. Square root is what we call it. Roots are the beginning of a tree. It's where a tree starts its growth. The roots of your family is where your family came from in the beginning. So square root means what number was squared in the beginning? What was squared in the beginning to cause this number? So the square root of 25, what was squared in the beginning that made 25? Well, 5 was squared in the beginning that made 25. So the square root of 25 is just 5. We wouldn't put the squared on it. We're just saying what number had a 2 on it. And we only want the 5. Another way to look at it is what number, identical number, same number, times itself. Exactly the same number made that one. It's another way to think of it. So what number times itself, exactly the same number, could make 16? Or we say 16 was caused by 4 squared. So 4 was the base number. And so the square root of 16 is 4, because that's the number that would have been multiplied by itself 2 times to make 16. So when we do these root symbol, we assume we're looking for something that had an exponent of 2. This has a 3 in it. So if you don't see a number, you assume we're looking for square roots, just 2 numbers. If you see a number different than that, for example, this is a 3, then we're looking for 3 numbers that are exactly the same, that are multiplying to make whatever numbers inside of here. So this means cube root. What was cubed or had an exponent of 3 in the beginning? So the cube root of 8, what number multiplied 3 times get to 8? Well, the number 2 does, because 2 cubed, see it's got that exponent, 2 on here it's called an index, but when you write it on the number it's called an exponent, because this is undoing exponents. This is working it backwards. This is working forward. So 2 cubed, because 2 times 2 times 2 gives you 8. We can also call it 2 cubed, or 2 to the 3rd power, or 2 with an exponent of 3. Any of those mean this, and the answer is 8. That's why we had 8 inside of here. So the cube root of 8, or the number that caused 8, was a 2. Not with, don't put the 3 on it, just say the number 2. We're looking for the base. So the cube root of 125 is 5, because when 5 is the base and it has the exponent of 3, it means 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. Notice this one doesn't have a number written here. Remember, that means that we're assuming it's an exponent of 2 or squared. So what number got squared that made a 100? Well, 10 did, because 10 squared, or 10 times 10, gives you 100. This written next to each other without anything in between here means 6 times whatever the square root of 5 is, or 8.4 times whatever the square root of 3.7 is. We're going to talk a minute how to do that. So, but I do want to talk about first what we just did a moment ago with squareds and cubes and then square roots and cube roots. How do we do this in the calculator? So if you have the TI-30X2S, this one, then I'm going to show you how to do it on here. Other calculators set it up differently, but you can probably figure it out based on the steps that I do here. So this says 5 to the 3rd power. So since 5 is your base, you type in 5 first. And then over here on the side, you have this arrow right here. And notice below it, it has an x to the 2nd power. So anytime you need an exponent of 2, you can use this one. But if you just want to be in the habit of always using this one, this works for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whatever your exponent is, this will say, tell it to go up high. So we're going to give it, telling it to go up high. So 5, go up high. Do a 3, exponent of 3. Now it didn't write it up high on this screen, but because it has this arrow here, it's telling us that this number would be written up high if it was written by hand. So 5 to the 3rd power, and then we're going to hit equals to find the answer. And there it is, just like we said before. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125, because 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 5 is 125. So 7 squared, remember I said you could use this button right here because it has an exponent of 2 on it. Or you can use this one. So I have this written 2 different ways that you could put it in your calculator. You could do 7 and then use that x squared button and then hit equals. Or you can hit 7 and use the up arrow and then the 2 and hit equals. Either way, it's going to give you the answer of 49. And here, just to throw one in that has decimals, you do it the same way. 6.2 to the 2nd power. So 6.2 x squared and hit equals, and it'll give you the answer. Now, to undo these, you just start with the answer that you had for those and write them as a root, like this, to go the other way. And I'll show you how to put these in your calculator. What was that, 6.2? Okay, and that's a decimal right there. All right, so let's come down here. All right, so we have I want you to see these two. Notice one of these is in parentheses and the other one isn't, but they look the same. It makes a difference on your answer, especially if this exponent is to an even number. If it's a 3 or a 5 or 7, usually it doesn't make a difference, but watch out. If they give it to you with parentheses around it, you better put it in your calculator that way. So this one is saying just the 3 to the second power, not the negative. You put the negative 3 to the second power, and the 2 only affects the 3. So it'd be 3 times 3 is 9, and then the negative goes on it. So that's how the calculator reads it. Negative 3 in your calculator, then hit x squared, and then hit equals, and it's going to give you this answer. But if you put the parentheses around it, then it makes the negative be involved with the multiplication. So it would be negative 3 times negative 3. This exponent affects everything in the parenthesis. So if you put it in like this, then the answer would be positive 9. So be careful, watch out for those kinds of things when you're doing your work. So the cube root of 125, how do you find that on your calculator? Well, you're going to put in what your index is, or what we also know as an exponent if it's on the base number. You're going to put that in first. Then you want the second feature of one of your keys here. So notice on the squared, the x squared here, that above that key, and mine's white, and yours might be a different color, but notice that it has that radical symbol, the square root. Then above this key here, it has a radical symbol with an x, meaning you can put a number in place right there like we did with the 3. So when we want square roots, we tend to use this one. So to get to it, we have to hit second and then this, and then it shows up on our screen. We're saying the second feature. So then I can put my number 125 in there and then hit enter. Whoops. I must have hit something wrong. Hang on a second. Square root. Oh, I did 125 instead of 25. That's what it was. Looking weird. Okay. Square root of 25 is 5. Okay. So if I did cube root, that I had intended to do cube root. So 3 and then the second button. Let me try that again. Excuse me. 3 for the cube root, and then I'm going to hit that arrow button to get in place of that x. Pardon me. And then hit the 125. And then the equals.